beautiful new lab has now opened up
Mhm.
in Be'er Sheva, which is fantastic. I hope you all show some images and videos of that as well as the kind of project ideas that were being discussed. But anyway, I just want to say congratulations for the opening of the lab. I wish I could have been there in person. Looked looked but you know, things maybe are calming down a bit and maybe I'll get a chance to get there pretty soon. But
Mhm.
yeah, I would say carry on. Let's get into it.
Okay.
Thank you, Ken. We'll make sure that you and everybody else will be there as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Working hard to calm things down as
Yeah,
as we speak.
I hope so.
So I just want to take like really quick 2 minutes, and before we let Merav, Jonathan, and the rest of the team present really the incredible work that they've been doing over the past few months, and I think specifically over the past few weeks. I'm just gonna very quickly, let's see, share with you the inception story, if you will, of Noor, because I know some of you have been there, some of you might have not. I think you're seeing the wrong screen right now, right? Aitana, you're seeing the right screen? Which one do you see?
Yeah, we see the right one.
The
We see
video,
the right
yeah.
one.
The
Like
video one, right? Not
Yeah,
not the
yeah.
presenter view. Okay, super.
Yeah.
So just very quickly, to those of you who were not with us over the past couple of years, Noor started with a global pandemic in 2020. So you might, you know, we've been through a lot over the past 5 years, but you might recall that there used to be a global pandemic. And in February 2020, just a second before MIT completely shut down, I found myself in one of the mornings walking into the lab, which is, as you always know, fully on, all projectors, lights, cameras, TVs, etc., and turn it all off because it really made no sense for us to burn the projector lamps when nobody is about to visit us in the foreseeable future. The thing is that I was wrong, as some of you might know, and 3 days later I got an urgent call to host another late visit of an Israeli team that arrived to Boston. I told them, I'm sorry, I cannot host you, but you can try and say no to an Israeli team in Boston, and you will see that they will show up anyway. And they, of course, showed up at the Media Lab's doorstep, and we hosted them. And when we started talking, the interesting thing they were saying is, we did not come to MIT to talk to you about innovation and technology and R&D. This is something, you know, the Israeli ecosystem is very good at. The startup nation, you might have heard this term, they're really, really pushing forward in terms of the digital development. Where they're struggling, they said, is on that brick side, right? How do we create a better physical R&D? And more specifically, they mentioned they were coming from the Negev, which is in the south of Israel, and specifically they're working on an innovation district associated with the Ben Gurion University, the hospital there, and some other facilities and organizations that are coming together. When they said innovation district, I think for many of us that felt very comfortable and familiar because we are situated in a very, very successful innovation district in the East Coast. Kendall Square has a very similar structure. There's a hospital, there is a university, a lot of industry partners. We might have less water and snow in the Negev, but nevertheless, there is a similar model here. And that sort of motivated a conversation that took place over the next 18 months, leading us to what is now known as Israel Government Decision 625, which basically states the establishment and also the funding for Noor and for a lab that, as you can see in the language, actually dictates that MIT will be part of. That created Noor. You all heard the name. It's Negev Urban Research in English, but also doubles in Hebrew and Arabic as Bright Light, which is the governing environmental element in that region, affecting everything from climate, urban, and natural landscapes. And Merav and Jonathan are going to talk a lot about the work they're currently doing in that field. But I'll just say that in that respect, Noor is, I think, closing the loop in terms of our other 10 or 9 or 10 city science labs, as it's the one focusing on living on the edge of the desert. What does it mean to live in that, environmental conditions that are so challenging, and what does it mean to have a city in that area? I'll close by saying that some of you might recall that we hosted Noor core team, the funding team, in City Science Summit 2023. This smiling photo was taken actually in the morning of October 6th, which was one day before the beginning of the events in Israel. We had a very challenging, 18 months or 15 months since, but I think that was for me kind of a bright side, seeing the incredible work done by the team since then. I spent the last few weeks in Israel, and it was really remarkable to see the effort to, rebuild where so much is being kind of destructed. And I think Merav is going to mention to you so much of the work that they've been doing ever since. These are a few photos from the inauguration. The place was literally a construction site up until 2 hours before the opening. You can see that on the video on the left side. And with that, I'm really more than excited to have Merav and Yonatan presenting the work that they're currently doing. Merav, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ariel. And we're very excited to be here and present to the whole network. I'm just going to share the screen. So as Ariel mentioned, Yonatan and I, we started in January 2024 in the midst of a war that unfortunately we still don't see an end to it. But 2 weeks ago, Yonatan, you can continue. One more, we have launched our new space, which is a major step in the becoming of Noor. Our new space is located in the heart of Be'er Sheva, in the heart of the Innovation District. It is seen from the street and is open to the public. And we envision the lab as a dynamic spot, a dynamic hub where scientists, engineers, researchers, students work alongside with government officials, local communities to develop design tools and processes to creating a more equitable and sustainable cities. So we'll show you some photos of our new space. Yonatan, you can continue. So the space was actually a bar. So we actually transformed a bar into a research space. We are not in charge for stopping all the fun. It has been abandoned for several years, the space. And so you can see the picture ahead, Yonatan. A few months ago, this is how the place looked before when they just started construction. And we were really working till the very, very last minute. This is actually the video Ariel was showing to you. So this is just 2 days prior to the opening. Honestly, I didn't believe we were going to pull it all together. But Sunday evening, it all came into place, and we really had an amazing event celebrating the inauguration of Noor. The mayor of Be'er Sheva has attended alongside the president of the Ben Gurion University, government officials, researchers, students, and also representatives of the very many organizations we are collaborating with. I think the event was particularly meaningful as so many people have been involved in the making of Noor. And especially during this difficult time, it was very exciting and inspiring and a very important milestone for everyone involved. After the opening night, we had a very busy week following with events and gatherings, meetings with government officials, the Be'er Sheva municipality, and various stakeholders from the Innovation District. Highlights also included a roundtable discussions of Be'er Sheva Metro and the unrecognized villages, as well as other workshops with students. Ariel was with us step by step. He was during the opening night and throughout the entire week, making it very, very meaningful for us. And we had a lot of fun having him. So thank you, Ariel. And right now we would like to present some of the projects we have been working the past year. Yonatan? Yonatan? Wait, I think we have some technical
Yes.
issues.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, now we hear you. Yes.
Perfect. Thanks, Mirav. So I'll give some context for the work we're doing. So you can see this is the Levant or the Eastern Mediterranean. It's actually turned 90 degrees clockwise, so we can see the context. And this is a somewhat famous sandstorm from, I believe this is 2017 or 2018. But you can see the area that we're looking at. This is the Negev, and within the Negev, the Be'er Sheva or the Negev metro area. We usually say, you know, the future is here. It's hot, dense, multicultural, and informal. When we say the future, we mean the global future. So Be'er Sheva is living in the future. We're looking at, you know, this is the city proper, and which includes around 200,000 people, but Be'er Sheva metro, which is the much larger point of context, is already 700,000 people, and very soon to reach 1.5 million by 2035. So this is an extremely fast-growing region in the world. And when we approach it, we actually look at this picture. We don't look at the picture of the city because we are envisioning the emergence of this new metropolitan area, this new Negev metro. And we're in a phase of its development which is very nascent. And so we believe that, you know, the location of Nur Deir and the work we're doing is laying a foundation for this future metropolitan area. An interesting thing about this area is that we can see, you know, the sort of Soviet-looking cities to the informal settlements. We have kibbutzim and we have government institutions. So everything on the spectrum from completely informal to highly regulated and formal. And these are the blocks that are going to make up this future city. And you can also see, so again, our projects are, obviously, majority of them are centered in Be'er Sheva, but we're also looking at Bikat Be'er Sheva, which with informal settlements, and Ofakim, which is the new towns and areas outside of Be'er Sheva. We're going to talk about the first project. That's actually the first project we started. That's the Innovation District. This is actually the CityScope that you've seen on the opening. It is focused on the Innovation District. Innovation District is a series of, I think there's 18 or 20 of these across the world. It's a combination of universities, industry, and local government to create like synergy between these entities. Be'er Sheva is one of the newer additions to it. Julie Wagner, who is initially from the Brookings Institute, but now runs the Innovation District Consortium, talks about the connectivity and proximity as the base conditions for strong district ecosystems, meaning it's not just the economical structure, it's also the physical structure. And it's a physical structure that enables these cross communication between the people who work there, the people who commute there, and so on. And we can see the picture now. Obviously, this has maybe the buildings, but does not have the urban infrastructure, does not have the human infrastructure to create the serendipitous value creation that is ubiquitous with innovation districts. In order to actually understand how we make a better innovation district, how we put metrics in place so we can initiate better decision making, we looked at 3 core aspects. So mobility, how people get there, how they move around. We look at land use, and we look at climate. And with that, I will pass it to Gitit Linker, who is an architect and a geospatial designer. Gitit is joining us from Berlin. Gitit, good afternoon.
Hi, thanks. Yeah, so I'm Gitit. So I'm going to be talking about the climate. And then I'm going to talk about 3 things. So the first one is the 3D scan, and then I'll talk about climate comfort analysis, and then in the end, we'll get to the scenarios. So we're going to start with the 3D scan we did of the main street. So this is the main street in the district. On the north, you can see the university, and the south is the hospital. And so you can see with this simple shade analysis that the main street, which is supposed to be, if we're talking about innovation district, a place where people interact, in the public space, then the main street is very unwalkable, very hot, almost no shade. And so this is a big thing for us. So this is the aggregated shade analysis. And then here you can see the full temperature. This is an average of the last 15 years, so for the whole year. And here we can see, for example, that there's some months where it's nice and cool, so anything above or below 28. But then you can see that the summers are really hot and uncomfortable, and then specifically in April and May, there's big heaps of heat and sun. And so this is, it is telling, it is informative, but it's also not the whole picture, because this is only the dry bulb temperature, and we wanted to make it a bit more accurate to the human experience. So we added a few more parameters to make it what is called climate comfort. So here we added, this was done in Grasshopper, so we added the wind, the sun path, the mean reading and temperature, and then we got to something called the Universal Thermic Climate Index. And so this takes into account the air temperature, the MRT, the relative humidity, and the wind velocity, all to give us a more accurate representation of what a person will feel the temperature is like in these areas. So we did this, and you can see here the two different cycles, the day cycle on the 15th of August, and then also a full year cycle of the 15th of every month. And again, here we can see there are some months and some hours that are extremely hot, and then there's some months that are really okay. And again, we can see this main street that is really unwalkable, unshaded, and has to be dealt with. So we moved on to the scenarios. This is the existing conditions.
Can you just highlight to everyone where the university and where the hospital is?
Yeah, on the north
sure.
or on the right is the...
So here, north is Bengal University, this area here, and then south is the hospital campus. The intermix of the medical school is over here, but overall, the Ben-Gurion is sort of a no man's land, the boulevard between them.
And show where we are located, do you understand?
Ah, yeah, you're
No.
right. Okay. So we are here, this weird round-looking building, and we occupy the ground floor.
So
we were
yeah, so we can see from the top on the left, we can see all the shading and the different trees in the area. And then on the bottom left, the thermal comfort. So this takes into account all the different parameters I talked about. And then on the right, the 3D scan, which shows us how really the street looks and feels like and operates. And then we started like adding on different scenarios. So this is the proposed intervention that right now the municipality has authorized. So this is like a placemaking intervention, adding different trees and shading structures. And you can see the difference it makes or doesn't make in the climate analysis. And so then we went and we added our own scenarios, a bit more extreme ones. So what would happen if Be'er Sheva was like a forest, desert forest, that you completely covered every open space that isn't a building with trees? What would happen then to the shading and the climate? And then what would happen if we made this kind of joint campus in between the university and the hospital and turned it into an energy square? You could put different shading elements, you could put solar panels, but really put lots of trees and shading. What would happen if you added additional floors to the buildings? The buildings there are quite low. They're mostly up to 4 or 5 floors. So what would happen if you added up to 22 floors, which is what is allowed right now? What then would happen to the shading and the climate? Or what happened if you wouldn't add to the buildings, but you would add new buildings? So low rise up to 4 or 5 floors, but just additional buildings, mostly where there's today parking lots and open space that isn't used for greenery. And then the last scenario we'll look at is the Midtown. This is adding new buildings up to like 50 floors. And then you can see that this impacts the shading and the climate a lot. So I'll wrap up my part and I'll just point out that we're really trying to work with the 3D scans and the 3D, not only for like as a representational tool and a graphic tool, but also as an analytical tool for climate and shading specifically in this desert city. Thank you.
Thank you, Gitit. The next study we're doing looks at mobility and who the users are, and where they come from, how the innovation district is being used now. I should mention this is existing condition, so we're using this as a baseline for any future intervention. And you talked about mobility. Noam Gal will join us. Noam is a geospatial scientist working with us, and he is in Tel Aviv. So Noam, stage is yours.
Hi, I'm Noam. These mobility findings are for the Innovation District after completing the first of Ariel's 4 stages of analysis for building predictive CityScope models, insight into the state of the city. The dataset that we used contains cellular data aggregated to the census tract level, and we analyzed 10 comparison points in Be'er Sheva in addition to our stakeholders, Ben Gurion University, the Gavion Tech Campus, and the Soroka Medical Center. With this information, we can equip policymakers with KPIs for user traffic, activity peaks, and spatiotemporal activity distributions, while setting the stage for building predictive interactive models for scenario testing, which is our longer-term goal. So to do this, we built an interactive platform that we plan to distribute to government agencies and members of the public to explore, which you're seeing now. It's deployed on GitHub pages with iframes for each of the HTMLs, which are coded in JavaScript with React and DuckGL. Could you move to... So these are some key origin statistics representing overall counts for each of the major cities originating trips. And then we're going to move quite quickly because there's quite a lot of content and time constraints. So yeah, Yonatan, could you move to the next? And click between different modes and different locations. Is everyone seeing the full screen or? Yes. And then you could move to the walking arcs. So we generated arc visualizations where each arc represents a walking trip. And then we generated shortest path routes on the next visualization, which uses the fact that the gates to both Soroka Medical Center and Ben Gurion University are confined. So there's only specific places you can enter. So we generated the quickest routes from the origins to each of these entry points. And then we can move to the next one. We can look at mode usage trends. So we noticed very low bus usage, which is a problem, and there's car dominance. The only people who walk primarily are students who probably don't have access to a vehicle and live very close to campus. Can you move to catchment area? You could skip origin index. The catchment area, we could look at where 90% of the trips are coming from spatially throughout Israel based on the different modes and between the different locations, and then route intensity. So we can see what are the most important. If you move the slider in the top left, you can see what are the most important street segments for getting users towards the Innovation District. And then lastly, let's do the temporal visualization. So you could see when the peak hours are for arrivals. This is just inbounds. You could also see outbounds if you click on it in the middle. You can see when people are arriving, when people are leaving. The general findings here, and we can move back to the presentation, is that the vast majority of the inbound traffic comes from within the Negev region, which was a little bit contrary to our expectations. To the degree of it, we had expected more long-distance commuters coming from Tel Aviv or Jerusalem. We also saw higher reliance on the Bedouin majority towns like Rachat and Lakia. Over almost 20% of all trips were coming from those towns. We saw very high car usage. There's some walkability for students, but in general, problems for transit. And we saw that the peak in the morning was even stronger than we expected. We knew there wasn't a lot of recreational activity, but we had expected that dynamics such as the Soroka Medical Center's night shifts for night shift hospital workers would have generated relatively more trips. But in the temporal graphs, it almost doesn't exist. You see this big peak in the morning and relative little activity at night. There's more insights that you could generate from the platform, and we plan to roll it out to the public for people to play with their own. They can find it on their own, and I could share a link in the chat if you guys want to play with it now. And that's it.
Thank you,
Noam,
Noam.
can you say a quick word about the data used here?
Yeah, I could talk. The data comes from, it says on the website, on the first one, describes where we got it, which was supplied by this company called DCell. And they aggregated it in coordination with this consulting firm, Adalia, so that we don't actually have the specific locations throughout the months that it was observed, but it was already aggregated, so we knew that how many, it's a typical user day, a typical weekday, how many trips by each mode, by each hour from each census tract come to each of the points of interest and leave from each of the points of interest. So it's useful for generating descriptive insights, but it isn't sufficiently granular for doing more intensive machine learning modeling. Thanks.
Merav.
Hi, so another project we would like to present is the Shade Atlas. We had presented it in Andorra, if you remember, and we would like to show you how it evolved. So in the desert and hot area, shade is life. Without shade, outdoors activity becomes nearly impossible. Gitit have shown it through all the climate analysis she have shown, and here you can see a shade map of Be'er Sheva, and as you can see, there are very few shaded areas. Most of the streets are very, very hot. This project we're doing in collaboration with the Be'er Sheva municipality, with Desertec Climate Innovation Center, and with the Center for Urban Forestry and Shading. You can continue. So we decided to focus on the scale of the street. We are going to choose 3 different streets within Be'er Sheva, within different neighborhoods that have different urban building typology, different demography, and potential. And we decided to focus on the scale of the street because we thought that we can really also not only create an analysis, but also an intervention. And so there are 3 parts for this project. One is analysis and design. The other one is how to use trees and vegetation and technology. Continue. So see to the left, we can see the spread of trees within Be'er Sheva, and to the right is a map showing streets that have trees and streets that don't have trees. As you all know, trees play a very crucial role in providing effective shade and human comfort in urban environments. And however, in Be'er Sheva, 25% of the streets lack trees at all. So it's a major problem, but also an opportunity. Continue. We decided to use 3D scanning technology to analyze the existing situation, but also to evaluate proposed interventions, enabling a more accurate and data-driven urban design solutions. And the next one, we are collaborating with the Desertec Climate Innovation Center to launch an accelerator program focused on climate technologies for urban environments in arid regions. This initiative aims to drive innovation and create sustainable solutions towards the unique challenges of the desert. And we would like to invite any other lab that is interested in conducting similar research to collaborate with us. It could be by utilizing the methodology we're proposing, a joint international accelerator. So we would like, if anyone is interested, you can approach us later. But this is a project we are really working on with the different organizations I've presented, and we hope by the next time we can really show you the analysis and also the interventions. Next.
Thank you. Merav, we'll dive into the last project for today, which is the Negev City or Be'er Sheva Metro, which I think we touched on a bit earlier. This is a rather interesting aerial photo of Be'er Sheva from the late 1940s. So we can see the old historic city and then the new sort of modernist city that's being built side by side. This process of laying foundation for urbanization has been happening for the last 70 years in the area, and really from an area that was sparsely populated, it is becoming an extremely dense and I should say urbanically complicated area. The building blocks, as we mentioned before, are very different. Some are formal, some are informal. It is our intention or our motivation to, by deploying tactical solutions to actual real-world problems that are happening within the region, we are little by little putting together this big puzzle of a metropolitan area. So again, once you see this is a from overture maps, you can see the footprint of the buildings. This is Be'er Sheva proper. What the rest of what we're seeing here is a mix of formal and informal villages, moshavim, which are agricultural settlements, and kibbutzim, and government institutions. So an extremely complicated area. I would like to invite Iman Khatib and Bassam Abu Ajaj. They are both fourth-year students from Sami Shamoun School of Engineering, to talk a bit about the project Shadow Map, which is the first project that we're doing within the Be'er Sheva larger metropolitan area. I think Iman, I think you're starting, right? Okay.
Yeah. Hey everyone. So Shadowed Maps is a digital platform designed to shed light on unrecognized villages and marginalized communities by providing accurate maps and data about their infrastructure and services. The platform empowers residents to share their challenges and needs while fostering connections with local authorities and organizations to develop sustainable solutions. It aims to bridge the gap between these often overlooked communities and decision makers to improve their daily lives. Okay. On our shadowed maps, we trace the existing main streets and mark the locations of the 42 unrecognized villages in the Naqab, including their names. We also map the spaces of the recognized Bedouin villages, the settlements, and the families of the Negev, and highlighted basic services such as bus stations, hospitals, and schools. And additionally, we focused on one specific village, Etnan, that now I will show you, which has been demolished, showcasing informations and the photos from our site visit. Through this effort, our project aimed to bring attention to the shadowed villages absent from formal maps. So here you can see the photos that we took.
And then we move forward. Our primary focus was on mapping key elements such as infrastructure, transportation, water management, settlement patterns, electricity, community dynamics, and waste management. By exploring these aspects, we aim to highlight the challenges faced by those villages and identify opportunities for sustainable development and improved living conditions. We want to create the mapping by launching a drone and utilizing it for informal data collection and analysis, even though it's hard for those shadowed spaces. Also by conducting surveys with the residents of or performing site visits for the regional mapping. You can move forward. For this research, we want to collect 3 villages. One of them is Bir El Hamam, Khashim Zanne, and Al Zarnouk. They are near Be'er Sheva. So we can see photos of each one of them that we made a site visit for them. Why we collected these three villages? Because they are in the main road, and they lack the main conditions, the main infrastructure. They lack so many things. You can move forward. This is the aerial view of Al Zarnouk, one of the villages that we started to map. At each year, we can see the development of Al Zarnouk village, and we can see that they are mainly becoming very dense in one space, and they are not very distributed in many spaces. You can move. At the site visit of El Zarnouk, we took some pictures that we want to also to add to the shadowed maps and show it as an example of the living condition. You can move. And for a basic information about Al Zarnouk that has the family of Abu Gwader is an unrecognized village, Bedouin village in the Negev with 5,000 residents. They lack clinics. There is only one school with 900 students and a temporary high school since 2019. They lack electricity, their reliance on solar panels and water via makeshift pipes. They have also been facing frequent house demolition. The residents also oppose the relocation to Rahat, that it's also a metropolitan, like Bedouin metropolitan beside Be'er Sheva. And you can move. And we want to take the basic map of the shared maps and start to collect all of the layers that we want to make and apply it on the map, like the electricity, where they make the solar panels, where they put it, like also collect the main information, like how many residents. We want to make surveys for the start of this point. And we can see also that also the topography has an impact on the way they plan or the way they make their houses. And from here, that's it. This is the basic thing.
Okay, thank you, Bassam and Iman. Mirav?
Yeah, so thank you all. This was our presentation, and really want to thank all our partners and that have been a part of the becoming of No, and we would be happy to open this now for questions or discussion.
Okay. Thank you, Merav, Jonathan, and the rest of the team. That was amazing. I mean, I think we are looking forward to travel to Be'er Sheva and see the new lab and everything. Yeah, we can open to questions. But I have one question to start. So, when you did the inauguration, all the event in the space with a lot of people, and you guys organize like activities around the CityScopes or other projects. What's the first feedback that you receive, or is there like any future collaboration that came up from this event?
Yes, actually there is. We have many meetings with different, let's say, either municipalities or organizations that approach us. So there's also, we are hoping to tighten up the collaboration with Be'er Sheva, with a municipality. So maybe there's also an urban renewal project with one of the neighborhoods, the old neighborhoods within Be'er Sheva. And also another municipality, Rehovot, we have a meeting there, or Ofakim, another municipality within the Negev. Also, we have a meeting with a big, they're building another major hospital within Be'er Sheva. It is a major event, so they also want to see how we can collaborate. So we have been approached with many different, let's say, officials, organizations. And now we are trying to figure out how to translate it into actual projects. And also we are continuing evolving the project we have been working through the whole past year. So I think it has a very big impact, and also it's on the street level. So everybody passing by, we have people walk in, people who live by and come take a look on the model. We are very excited. We have our 2 CityScope model, and it's not made out of Lego, so it's actually printed out. Not because we don't like Lego, we love Lego, but we wanted to try something a little different. So yeah, I think it does have a very impact. And now having a physical space, we are really also trying to fill it out with really activities and students coming and working, studios from the architecture school coming and doing. So
It's not that we don't like Lego, we cannot afford it in this day and age. So.
we love Lego. I have so much Lego at home.
I have a question for you, but first of all, thanks for this presentation, and the work is terrific already. Can't wait to see where it goes. We're putting together a city science lab in San Francisco that's focused on the housing crisis, and they have state mandates to increase density and really aggressively build new housing. Some of the solutions are pretty obvious if you want to increase the supply and reduce commuting, improve access to amenities, all the things we talk about. The challenge is not design, it's really helping the community reach a consensus. There's a huge amount of community opposition. There are these NIMBY-YIMBY wars, as they call them. Yes, in my backyard, people against the older, more affluent property owners that are not in my backyard. So the question to you is, how important is community engagement for this project? How important is it to help all of the stakeholders reach a shared vision of the future?
I'll start. I think it is very important. Like when I presented the shade atlas, the street, so we want to do it on this level of the street, just because so we can create a very large community engagement. So I think for some of those projects, it must be. Also from the innovation district we have presented, there are the stakeholders, which also creating a large or a higher engagement from their side is also not so easy, because they're very strong, powerful stakeholders. Each one has their own interest. And we are trying to think how to engage also the community within the innovation district, and we didn't present it, but what's unique about the innovation district in Israel, that it does include also two major neighborhoods. Usually innovation districts also, they focus on the university hospital, but here it also has the two neighborhoods that are surrounding the hospital and the university. So it is a major question. And also, I mean, the city is asking how to promote urban renewal. I mean, in Israel, we also have, I don't know if to call it a housing crisis. Some people do call it a housing crisis. And especially in the periphery, it's not economically to create urban renewal. So it's not really happening. So that's like a major challenge, how to promote urban renewal where the land use and where the real estate is not so high. Yes, in Tel Aviv it's easy, Jerusalem easier, but in Be'er Sheva, Ofakim, and the Negev, it's impossible. It doesn't happen. So I think that's a question that also the municipality of Ofakim has approached us with that. And what's happening that they're building like these mega structure neighborhoods because it's more easier just to spread out. So I think, yeah, these are issues that we are dealing in Israel, and also I think we're going to deal within the lab as well.
Thank you.
I have a question on that note. Is there, part of the challenge that we've always found is that, not just talking about the urban features of the city, but also talking about the benefit of certain strategies like increased density promotes more walkability, or access to services and amenities, or support for public schools, or like there's these other dimensions that are the kind of secondary reaction to different urban strategies, which are always less transparent for a lot of stakeholders. Like people don't understand the correlation between density and funding for public schools, or public libraries, or certain amenities. And have you found that kind of dialogue is something that is easy to promote. I mean, we're struggling with that as well. And this, the first CityScopes were really about planning and urban performance at kind of a urban level, but not at a user level, not at a benefit level. Is that something that you guys are thinking about, or?
Actually, very much. I mean, one of the databases we have just built is amenities of all Be'er Sheva. I mean, we took database from the municipality, Google Maps, and OpenStreetMap to really create a more comprehensive one. And now we're trying to find patterns within how different amenities aggregate next to each other, and also understanding what we can see surrounding, let's say, health clinics, okay, what kind of amenities we have and how they're spread within the different neighborhoods. So not only how they're accessible, which is only distant, but also the quality of the distance. And we're also, I mean, we didn't present here, but one of the themes we're working on is health and understanding what it means to a healthy neighborhood, and how being in close proximity to different amenities can enhance overall health, physical health, and overall health well-being. So actually, when we were just meeting with the municipality and thinking about one of the neighborhoods in Be'er Sheva, that's some of the things we were then to start to look, the spread of the amenities. We're also looking to understand the food desert within, or food swamps within Be'er Sheva, to understand how, because we see that the health data for Be'er Sheva, for example, is not so good. There's high level of obesity among children and things like that. So we are trying to look at these kinds of data and bring that to the planning table. So it's not just because the other, as you've mentioned, I mean, there is a team that's doing, the typology, the building typology,
Right,
understanding the street section, and et cetera, et cetera. And so, yeah, so we are trying to build these kind of databases and analysis, and trying to analyze it and see what we can learn from different patterns and et cetera.
If I
Marcus,
can
maybe
add a
just to
couple of notes
quickly
here.
follow through on what Marcus is saying.
Yeah.
One of the less
Ariel,
glamorous. Oh yeah, sorry. Go ahead, Jonathan.
Yeah, I was just going to add that there is a bottom line to all of our projects. Bottom line meaning, some people create value or benefit from value, and some people lose value. And this is very, very much with the innovation district. We want to add layers that actually show, the finances, not the finances, how much money it creates, but the land values, and what if we can model future land values. And we think that, this strategy can be deployed in practically all of the other projects. At the end of the day, if there's a NIMBY or a YIMBY, it really boils down to, how much money you're losing as an individual organization if an activity happens here or there. So this is a working assumption, but I think if these things are out in the open, then the negotiation is much easier. Again, no
Right.
negotiation isn't easy, but at least, you're not talking in slogans, you are, actually modeling value.
Right.
This is the biggest hurdle for the innovation district at this point.
Yeah, I think we're struggling with a similar idea in San Francisco, is how do you kind of temper urban planning decisions with practical live, life, day-to-day life quality. And a lot of that comes down to the money transfer, the tax base, support of public schools, support of public transit systems, and then it changes the dialogue very quickly.
Yeah, for sure. Ariel, I'm sorry, I cut you.
No worries. I just wanted to tap back into what Marav was saying. One of the less glamorous tasks of setting up a new lab is setting up the data pipelines, which are always missing. Luis is smiling because he knows that very well. We don't have the data. We don't have ways to access it. So a lot of the work that the team was doing on the back end was to create some of these new data pipelines. And Marav mentioned some of the data sets that they've been building right now. And it's also, it's always about the politics of accessing the right person that holds the right key to the right data and then sort of pulling it back. And it's always kind of a big task. But I think going back to Kent's comment about community engagement, we know that CityScope in general and the work we do globally is always facing, one end to the communities, but on the other hand to experts, right? It's about kind of leveraging stakeholders and experts in their discussions, the city, the municipalities, the decision makers, before we sometimes access the general public. And one thing we saw, and I mean, Noam gave the same talk to the municipality of Be'er Sheva when I was there. It was really amazing to see how they were reacting to data that is supposedly accessible to them, but they never saw it presented in such manner. Commuting patterns, where people go, where do they visit, how much time they spend. And we are very, I think, fortunate to have replica data and other data sets, but usually in places like Be'er Sheva, you don't have this kind of a representation. And that's, again, a very, very important work that the team is currently doing. One last thing I would say is that the work that Iman and Balsam were showing, this is another type of data aggregation in places where we don't have access to this data, mapping the informal, mapping places that otherwise would not be mapped officially. And that's, again, a very, very important piece of information that we want to collect and use it in future projects.
Right.
I just want to build on top of it. Well, first, I want to say congratulations. This is mind-blowing. I mean, like, you guys have made a crazy, fantastic job. So this is amazing. Not only building the space, but also building the tools and all this, let's say, creative way of dealing with the data. I think this is fantastic and is very good for the network. And this is my question also is like in the educational side. It's a little bit like, and maybe it's too early, but I think now you have this platform that is pretty cool where you can visualize the data. So what are the first things that you have been, I mean, is there a first thing that you were like, oh, I didn't realize that? Or is a learning that is starting to emerge from this platform that you could say, and maybe it's something very small because you are starting to do that. I know that in the future you're gonna include simulations, as Merav was saying, but I don't know if you already are like, wow, working with the, I don't know, Bedouin data or with the students' data. I don't know is there anything that you could like, maybe it's just a fun fact or something like that, but I don't know, like, is there something that you want to highlight? Nothing?
It's a good question. I think it's a good, if there's still, I think we're still figuring it out, I mean, even like even the tools, I mean, we've managed to do it all for the opening night, but we're still testing it and adding to it. And really, I mean, right now, I think it's still pieces. We still don't see it as a whole picture. I mean, we're working towards it. So I think maybe save this question for like a little later on and we'll have a good answer.
Okay, I have a follow-up. I mean, like, if you want to have like a workshops with us where we can go together and look into the data and see. I mean, I am happy to go through that with Andorra. We always like to have that sessions where you see the data with people and have just questions about, oh, why the data is doing this, or why we have this, whatever, this peak here or whatever. So don't be afraid or don't be shy. I would really love to have a workshop with you guys and look into that.
Great. We will.
Cool.
Thanks, Luis.
Okay. Is there any more questions or no?
Maybe I'll just
Okay.
add, Maitana, if anyone want to physically meet the NUR team before they're able to travel to Israel, the NUR team is going to be traveling to Hamburg in April for the, I think it's Digital Twin conference that HATSEU is currently organizing. So we hope to have some kind of a roundtable there. If any of you are also visiting, I know some of you might, we would love to meet you there. And again, hopefully very soon we will be able to travel there. And we also had a conversation yesterday with an organization at MIT that helps students to travel to places and do some kind of exchange program. And so we might also be able to send some of you into NUR as soon as possible.
By the way, that's quite important. Yeah, the MIT Mystic, that's for the network, is supporting students to travel, etc. So if somebody's interested in that, please communicate with Ariel or with me, because we have actually Ariel put me in touch with the person. So that's something for the network that maybe is interesting for the network.
Money is not an issue.
Well,
Good point, Ariel.
Okay, so thank you, Merav and the team for presenting, and thank you the rest for coming. See you. Well, if you guys wanna join, we have at noon Boston time Gastronomy and Beyond with Peter Lodge. And then if not, we will see you all next month, February 25, when Gipuzkoa team is presenting. So yeah. Okay, so have a
So
good
thank you
week.
all.
Thank you,
And
Maitana. Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thanks.
Feel free
See
to
you
reach
soon.
out.
Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you.